The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode is one of our deep dives. We're going to be diving deep into the Clone Wars, the 2D vintage micro series, the Clone Wars that gets more and more words added to the way you can describe it all the time. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok, ready to take this look back, and yes, it's a retitled past. That's the way Star Wars can be sometimes, right?
It
Star
really
Wars,
is, yeah.
For New Hope fans.
Yeah, this one has a special edition title now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a lot of fun here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week we are recommending Rebel Rising by Beth Revis. It is a great story of Jen's life. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please download your free audiobook today. You can go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. And Ken, we have another offer.
We do indeed. Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, is offering 35% off across their website with a special ForceCenter code. To get your discount, enter the coupon code FC35, FC35, or visit the website with this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, Star Wars Galactic Baking. It's coming out May 4th, has a lot of wonderful Star Wars-inspired recipes for you to turn your home into the Star Wars galaxy. So check it all out with that code, FC35.
Yeah, I like that idea that you can turn your kitchen into a galaxy far, far away.
By eating some of the creatures in it.
Turn your kitchen into Maz's castle. Fiery, fiery mess. That's what I'll be doing when I try to do some Star Wars Galactic Baking. Anyway, we're going to get into this. We are discussing the Volume 1 of Clone Wars. So I wanted to start out with some background info because I think, as you and I were discussing off air, we knew some of this. We didn't know some of this other stuff. It was just added to Disney Plus. Part of their vintage collection is what they are now describing is the 2D Clone Wars micro series by Genndy Tartakovsky. Here is some background information on what this is. I think there's some people who probably grew up with this, or some people who our age who really watched it when it came out, and maybe there's even some fans who are just discovering this now on Disney Plus. So here is the background info from Wikipedia. In the early 2000s, I'm reading this like it's a storybook. In the early 2000s, Hasbro asked Lucasfilm to develop something between the prequel films, which they hoped would boost action figure sales and help promote the upcoming Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Cartoon Network, who had previously worked with Hasbro on the Transformers series, suggested Genndy Tartakovsky, who was finishing work on the animated series Samurai Jack. Lucasfilm met with Tartakovsky, who agreed to the project if the shorts could be extended from the original proposed 1-minute runtime up to 3 to 5 minutes. Star Wars Clone Wars then ran on Cartoon Network from November 7th, 2003 to March 25th, 2005, my wife's birthday, the year we started dating. Amazing.
Wow.
That was not on Wikipedia. That was a personal entry.
Look, it's right there.
The episodes were released simultaneously on television and online for members of the Hyperspace Fan Club. They were available the next day on CartoonNetwork.com and on StarWars.com for non-Hyperspace members. Like I said, Volume 1 on Disney Plus is just been added, as well as Volume 2. But Volume 1 is a collection of the 10 episodes of Season 1 and the 10 episodes of Season 2, all edited together. Ken, does that all make sense? Do you have any questions about the backstory?
It all makes sense. And I love that this is a toy book series, just like my favorite comic books in the 80s were to sell me toys. And that this started from, hey, let's sell some toys. Let's do that.
And it worked because I bought some of these toys that they put out specifically for this line.
Yeah.
So let's get into this. We're going to talk, as we often do, about our own experience back in the day, and then we'll go on to our experience in the current day, rewatching these on Disney Plus. So, did you watch these individual episodes as they came out, and what was your reaction back then?
I did, but they were hard to find in a way. And it's funny, I'm listening to you explain where you could find them in television and this thing called online. Now, I joke, but the internet was a few years into being a thing that we went to daily, no doubt about it. I was on Friendster by this point. I was switching to MySpace. I was hip kids, I swear. But I didn't do the hyperspace fan club stuff. CartoonNetwork.com. No, I'm going to watch it on my TV. Come on, me and my roommates gathering around the TV watching this stuff. So I did, but I don't recall sitting down to like, oh, it's on. I got to watch this. So I was like, I'll find it. It'll pop up at some point. I'm a huge Star Wars fan at this point and always have been, but we'll get into why I just wasn't super excited for it. Now, also the thing, and I mentioned this before, it is almost nothing to do with the story, but everything to do with the story for me personally. My old roommates at the time were close friends. They're CalArts folks. Two of them at the time were working in industry. One was helping to design and create Invader Zim and had been doing that for a couple of years at Nickelodeon. The other one, my friend Casey, was working at SpongeBob at Cartoon Network. So I was clued into these coming out. Like I was aware of that. They didn't work with Tartakovsky directly, but I think they knew him. It was a weird time. That's why I called one of my friends recently, was like, did you know Dave Filoni back then? Because you were literally in the next office. And he kind of remembers him. It's a weird time. So I was excited in a way that, some animated stuff. And my roommates were excited that Star Wars fans and the prequels affected them maybe differently than it did me, even at the time when I was struggling with them. They did not like them. So it was there was an anticipation in my house. When the day came, this November 7th, 2003, I didn't sit down to watch them.
Okay. So you were not ready. You were not there.
I was like, I'll find it. And I think I watched it the weekend I can't remember how I did watch them during their first run, but it wasn't like it's Friday at 10 PM because they're a little harder to find. And this was a little bit of a different age of information.
Yes, it was totally a long time ago in the entertainment industry and the way that we absorb things. It was on the internet. It's so weird. So you did get to see them eventually. You watched them on your television. What did you think back in the day? Did you love them? Were you unsure about them? What was your initial reaction?
I did enjoy it. No, I did enjoy it. Let me start there. Because they were so hard to find, I had a disconnect, and we've talked about this when talking about the Clone Wars animated series that followed, and then again it springs up when Disney Plus says, "Hey, we're going to start doing Star Wars TV shows." There's just part of my soul just goes, "Star Wars is in the movies," and I always fight through that. And I always enjoy it. So this was definitely. I mean, again, my last real memory is droids or Ewoks or Ewok movies. Ironically, now in the same bucket of Disney Plus vintage. So I did enjoy them, and that's kind of where I'll start the journey.
Right, but I think what I hear you saying is they're bite-sized television things, and Star Wars to you is an epic adventure on the big screen at that time.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, this is I had quite a journey, I think, in a good way. I remember setting up. Now, this would have been a year earlier in 2002. Moved in with my girlfriend at the time, and the kitchen area, a little side off the kitchen, had a built-in little desk area that was meant for eating and drinking. But I put my computer there.
Sure.
And it was the first time I had internet at home. And it was one of those, back in the day, it was such a pain to set up. It took me literally 8 hours or something. And the first thing I did was went to starwars.com. And I remember in the magic of my home, there it is. There's an image.
Yeah.
Advertising Attack of the Clones. And I spent so much time in that nook writing. And I looked at starwars.com every day, literally, just in case there was something. And I was a member of the Hyperspace Club back then. So I really viscerally remember sitting in that little desk office going, okay, I don't have cable. So if it was just on Cartoon Network, I couldn't see them, but it's going to be on the internet and I'm going to see them. And my internet was real bad. So those episodes were 3 minutes and it probably took me 12 minutes to watch every one.
Yep.
Because it would stop and it would buffer. And it was still an absolutely amazing experience. And I think what was amazing to me about it is these micro episodes. We're going to talk a bunch about them, but they're so full of action. They're so full of the Jedi being at the utter height of their power.
Mm.
We got to see a little bit of a bunch of Jedi in action in Attack of the Clones. I mean, we got to see a lot with the whole arena, but it wasn't at that same level of the years of imagination of imagine all these Jedi as powerful as Luke Skywalker, just waving their hands and throwing everything around with the Force. And there was a little bit of that in the prequels up to that point. But I think for me back in the day, this micro series was what I was dreaming of seeing the Jedi do, dreaming of seeing them be super cool, super badass. And again, going back to the criticism of the prequels at the time, there was less humor, there was more action, there was more, wow, the Jedi are amazing. So at the time, I thought they were really, really great. I still think they're great, but it's a different adventure now. But back in the day, I loved them.
Yeah. As we'll discuss, there's definitely things that were got me excited. Absolutely.
So did they increase your excitement for Revenge of the Sith? They were obviously intended, as we know from Wikipedia, to help sell some toys. That worked on me. I absolutely bought these action figures, and they did stoke my excitement for Revenge of the Sith and what kind of huge Jedi action we'd see in that movie. Did you buy the toys? Did it get you excited for Revenge of the Sith?
I did not buy the toys. There was also an era where I don't recall. I don't think I was buying a lot of toys there following the Phantom Menace explosion.
Yeah.
Not even Star Wars. Yeah. So I'll say, did these get me excited for Revenge of the Sith? Mildly so. And even though I just said, hey, there's some exciting things in there that got me excited, I was already there. This is, and it seems like a cheap answer, right? But I'm always pretty excited for the next Star Wars story. And even though episode 1 and 2, maybe it confused me a little bit, or I didn't enjoy them as much. And, 2's got some stuff in there that I still to this day go, yeah, 3PO. I was already excited. I was already counting down the days for Revenge of the Sith. I already couldn't wait for it. So this just helped. That makes sense. But also, I will admit, I'm out again, unsure of the material outside of the movies. I hadn't read Legends. I hadn't read any Karen Traviss books, and would not be reading any Karen Traviss books. Not disrespect to Karen Traviss, because I know those books inspire a lot of fans. I just didn't do it. None of the comics. So I was just waiting for the movie. And these were kind of another one of those things where we're just like, cool, it ain't the movie. Wait for the movie.
Right. So you were waiting for just like a huge steak dinner, and these were some a handful of tater tots that you got.
Yes.
To tide you over.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah, I think they did increase my excitement for Revenge of the Sith, and we'll revisit this conversation more when we talk Volume 2, which just really sets up the events of Revenge of the Sith. But even for these first 2 seasons that comprise Volume 1 on Disney Plus, I think they really got me excited for the potential, or really, teased Anakin's fall with that huge fight with Asajj, and really playing with the Anakin's going to go to the dark side, which we all know, but really kind of getting a little bit more menacing and foreboding about that than we even saw in Attack of the Clones. Obviously, we see him, kill the Tusken Raiders and rant about it. So that's pretty scary. But this was different with the rain and the red sky and all that. But the Grievous thing was like, it put Grievous over so strong. Like almost, I think, from some of my fan group discussions back in the day, almost too strong to make him so incredibly terrifying and unstoppable that it did get me really excited for Revenge of the Sith. And I did have to do that, like, oh, okay, well, Grievous has got to be taken down. He can't spend the whole movie like he did the animated series. There's not room for him to slaughter Jedi constantly in this film. But it did get me really pumped, and it did really do its job of getting me excited for the potential of the Clone Wars and the war in action I was going to see in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
So let's jump now to the present. We go on a very long journey since 2003, 2004, when we were seeing these Volume 1 episodes, sitting down to rewatch them now after years of talking Star Wars, years of doing this podcast. Right now, we're really intimately rewatching the Clone Wars animated series, the 3D series, to do breakdowns of every single episode. So that, I think, I'm sure affects how we look at them. What is your overall reaction to watching them now, and how much is it affected by your relationship to 3D Clone Wars?
Yeah, I'm trying to be honest here and check myself, because I in starting to watch these, other than the fun, and there's some great stuff. That phrase we said we'd be using a lot on Tuesday's show, sense memories, came rushing back, and that was a lot of fun. So, but I'm gonna start here. I was struggling not to judge these. And what I mean by that is that I'm calling myself out a little bit here. I think we have a certain way of digging in on ForceCenter. It's gotten even deeper over the last couple of years. I've changed as a fan and how I take these things in, and how I break them down, and how I interact with them. It's always kind of from a point of celebrating, and always from a point of emotions and all this kind of stuff. But without a doubt, we dig deep, right? And it's one of the things we do here. And I think you do the same thing. We want to make sure we don't believe our own hype, or don't over, think this is the only way to take it in. We just have a certain way of looking at Star Wars. So I started watching these, Joseph, and I was like, come on now. Oh, this is what we're doing. I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right, because, first of all, these won awards.
Yeah.
I'm looking at I haven't won any Emmys, so.
And this won several, yeah.
Shut up, Ken. These won. These have great things in them. We're going to go into those details. I don't think Tartakovsky set out to explain everything in the minute detail with the fall of the Jedi, the studying of the clone's identity. That was the first one. The first couple episodes, I was like, we don't even know who the clones are. They're just killing machines. And I was just like, Ken, stop. Just turn that off and enjoy these. And, Lucasfilm didn't go for that stuff either. And I really want to celebrate these. You mentioned it up top, Joseph. I want to celebrate these for having some very important introductions, or taking some things. Planet Ilum comes to mind, taking them from other things and putting them into the forefront. I have impressive moments. And I think I count these as among the first wave of this a prequel love for our generation, where it was like, I don't know about the movies, but those are pretty cool. And that's where I'm at right now. That was the journey of Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought you might go on that journey. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so you know me well.
Well, I kind of had this journey myself a little bit a couple of years ago, off air. I think it's literally a couple of years ago, because I loved these when they came out, and it, like I said, it does have to do with my relationship with the prequels changing. I had my criticisms of the prequels when they came out, but I was really drawn to them. I really loved them. Revenge of the Sith really locked it in, when all the ideas came together, and I, started to think about it more from that perspective of, oh, look at all these ideas. But when it was first coming out, I did have some of those criticisms of, like, why doesn't it feel like the original trilogy? Where is the thrilling action and adventure? I want it to be a little edgy and a little darker, and I don't need characters stepping in poo poo. And so when these, like I said, when these came out, it spoke to all of those criticisms and said, here, this is exactly what you've been wanting. So these lived in my mind for years as so great. And then a couple of years ago, I found them on YouTube, because I wanted to remember a couple of specific beats with Anakin and Asajj. And I watched it, and it was uncanny valley is the best way to describe it. I had the reaction of a totally unfair reaction, as you're describing, is my relationship with this era is now the Clone Wars animated series I know so well and love so well. And this felt like, that I don't even remember what that Simpsons episode is, but it ends with the beat of Bart and Lisa looking out the window and seeing the almost Bart and Lisa outside, and being just like having just existential dread and terror at it.
Yep.
And like, that's the way I saw it. And I was like, what? I feel so different. So going into the rewatch, knowing we were going to discuss it, I wanted to reconnect to the love. So I did, what you and I talk about trying to do, of, leave my baggage at the door, acknowledge it, and just engage with what is presented, and engage with it like I did back then. And I think the way these were made, they're so Attack of the Clones based, right? They're not, they're moving Anakin's story along a little bit, but really they're just kind of highlighting, the dangers. They definitely do some storytelling, introduce some characters. We'll talk about all that, but it's all Attack of the Clones based in terms of the visuals, and it's really just starting from that place and saying, here are the chess pieces. Here are the action figures.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
literally.
let's have some fun with them. And there are some ideas here and some big themes. We'll talk about them. But I really let myself sit back and go, this is Star Wars that loves the part of Star Wars that is an adventure serial, that is a
Mhm.
whiz bang adventure, that
Yeah.
is just thrills in the visual poetry of action and gets almost all of its meaning from being just this toned poem of war that dances right on the edge of making you just sort of glorify it and be like, this is great. And then sneaks in these great moments of making you feel it a little bit, you know?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
what I really enjoyed watching it through that lens is, there's reasons it won Emmys. It is just this gorgeous exercise in minimalism, the power of animation, and the power of Star Wars as in adventure serial.
Yeah, and the power of Star Wars to inspire our own imaginations on these literally the figures in our hands. We want to say, I think is one of the great things you said. A lot of great things in there, but these are coming out of Attack of the Clones. Sith's not even there yet. Tartakovsky did clearly work with Lucasfilm. He had to present George some of these stuff. I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff. I've almost intentionally not dug into that, especially for this episode and next week's. I just kind of I don't want to get held down on. Well, George said this. There's some little beats and stuff that I'm aware of, but and to come out of Attack of the Clones, and this is what it makes a lot of sense. And I had a lot of fun watching this a second time last night at the time of this recording. I watched it. I sat down with a White Claw. Yep, I did that, and I just watched these and had a lot more fun with them. So,
Yeah.
remind yourselves, Star Wars fans, just every once in a while, check yourself.
Yeah, and I think if I'm correct on my behind the scenes lore, White Claw was a new bounty hunter that they cut from this series.
Absolutely, and then he repurposed him as Grumgar in Force Awakens.
Exactly. But yeah, I think for me, really really enjoyed it. But to be honest about it, I think the things that make it different from the Clone Wars we now know, right? And there's no reason that the team or Genndy Tartakovsky would have approached the clones with a bunch of humanity and identity, because they're really set up like they are at the end of Attack of the Clones, right?
Mm-hmm.
You watch Attack of the Clones, there's not a hint that we're going to explore the clones as individual beings with
No,
humanity, right? It's
no.
the Imperial theme. They're a symbol of failure and the dark side. And this, shows them as soldiers of the Republic and kind of takes up that theme of like, it's too bad that these, armored beings of war have to be here.
Mm.
But that's such a contrast from like, watching those clones do action. Like, why isn't Rex and Echo joking with each other? It is really weird, and there is there isn't a ton of humor, and the time we spend with Anakin, it's really focused on his anger and the threat of him falling, and there isn't that warmth or kindness. So
Mm.
those things aren't criticisms, because there isn't any reason they would have been there at the time,
Yeah.
given uh, Genndy Tartakovsky's mandate.
Mm.
But I just want to acknowledge, I think, what makes me go back to them and go, wow, these pieces that I know from the other Clone Wars are missing.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's fair. We want to be fair to the series, but also acknowledge it. Yeah, so no, the great stuff. And again, so much stuff in there, and some of it was the first positive Star Wars conversations I'd felt in a few years back in 03 and 04.
Yes, me as well. So let's get into some of the things to celebrate for sure. How did you feel about the 2D animation, about the animation itself? Does it feel classic or vintage now?
Look, it's just weird. It's just the way it is. I was one of those loud jerks, really upset at the 3D animation in the Clone Wars at first. And I was I probably at one point said the old Clone Wars, the better one, the original one looks better. Now I look at this and it's like you're looking at a old timey rotoscope or something. But I enjoyed it in that way, and I love because I didn't buy the figures, but I do remember the figures, and I did like the look. I like the design, and I've seen even some of the redoing some of the modern Clone Wars stuff in this style. I've seen those clips on YouTube, and pretty funny stuff, pretty good stuff. But yeah, look, it's just the time. The Clone Wars stuff. It's another example of George going, let's try to do something forward thinking in terms of tech, even. So It's hard to not to look at these and feel like I'm looking at Tom and Jerry on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I felt that in a good way revisiting them.
Mhm.
Like there was something, I think a little classic, a little retro about them in 2003, right? There's
Yeah.
nods in the design to the style of the Nirvana animation that they, pull a little bit of that from the studio that made the story of the Faithful Wookiee from the holiday special, give a little bit of that 3PO look. And, I was recently rewatching from way back in the day, the original Max Fleischer Superman cartoons, which is kind of a model of
Hmm.
not comedy animation, but action animation. There are definitely some like angles and some design things that spoke to that whole history of action animation. It felt kind of classic even back in 2003, and now it really feels like it deserves that word vintage. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it in that sort of like there's still power in the old ways kind of perspective, right? Of like, because it's almost like the more animation gets better, there's always going to be an element of sort of expressionism of this isn't meant
Mhm.
to be real. This is an idea.
Yeah.
This is a sort of an expression of the idea, literally expressionism. That's always there in animation. But this is even more like we are not trying to fool you in any way that's a beautiful painted backdrop,
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed just experiencing that sort of pure expressionism of the animation.
Yeah, no, it works. It works, and hey, look, it's just as far as me, it's human nature. Like even when Rebels came out, it was kind of like, well, I don't, I like the Clone Wars, and Resistance comes out. Nah, Rebels was better. Yeah, it's just the way it works, and it was fun. I'll tell you what, I loved a lot of the designs. The clones look really awesome. The colors pop. The designs look great. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched on my computer and I did a lot of taking screen captures of individual great shots. Um, I did want to get this out of the way so we could spend the rest of our time celebrating, but we always discuss if there's anything that we disliked or questioned. So we already talked about like we're going through this journey of having to time travel and really appreciate these for what they are and not compare them to the later series.
Yeah.
Beyond that, was there anything else that you weren't sure about?
So I'm gonna I'll try to say there's present day and then maybe even going back in time. Present day stuff, yeah, it's very action intensive. We're going to talk about that a lot, and I know this was kind of pitched. Tartakovsky was talking about what it's like a Band of Brothers type of series, the HBO show and everything, and you could see that. And there's times a lot of hey, there's a war on, let's watch it and let's go have some fun watching this war. I don't hold that against the series. It's just it's very apparent now. And look, Star Wars, you said it should have some pew pew, and this has a lot of pew 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 in it. So I don't dislike that. I don't even question it. It's just something that I can't help but notice now, compared to some of the deeper stuff we got going on. I yeah, I'll just jump to this one. There's a lot of the Jedi as warriors and superheroes, which is great because I think they are in a way, but also we love kind of analyzing a little bit more and that stuff now. But I can't, again, I think I'm going to say this a lot, Joseph. I can't hold it against the series. But here's one that I didn't like then and I don't like now. Are you ready? You could
I'm
probably
ready.
guess. Can you guess?
No, I want to have a big reveal.
Okay. I can't stand Dirge. I didn't like
Uh,
Dirge then. I don't like Dirge now.
okay,
And I know, yeah.
go ahead.
He's a Genndy, so he's named after Genndy. Seemingly immortal species. That's like in the description of the species. And I know. So when back in the Jedi Council days, I wouldn't do a lot of the producing with the show, but I, towards the end, I'd take over some of the news gathering duties or whatnot, and I'd see tweets. One fan, God, and if you're a ForceCenter fan, God bless you. I can't remember your name. It's not you. Every week for a year solid, I'd get a tweet. Do you think we'll see Dirge back in canon? And every week I'd ignore it. And I know now. I think Kevin Scott's bringing him back. He's
Yeah.
in the Bounty Hunter series or the After series, right? So
Yeah, no,
cool.
Dirge is on his way back into canon.
And by the way, I'm open to it, right? Because Jackson was the one I probably hated more. And look at that. I love that story from a certain point of view. So, again, check yourself, Ken. Check yourself as a fan. But I watched it. I don't even like the design. I don't even like the look. A lot of things I just like. It just doesn't work for me. And other people it might have. He is big and bulky. He's a mid-90s comic book villainy. Just nothing about the aesthetic I like. And then slice him in two, and then like a T-1000, he starts coming back to life. And again, can he be killed? Yeah, we see some stuff going on. But anyways, I don't want to head on. We want to celebrate. I'm not a Dirge fan. That's all. Not a Dirge
Yeah, no,
fan.
we want to be honest. Yeah, so here's my what I thought as soon as you started to talk about disliking Dirge, and I think I'm hearing this. You have a Star Wars button where certain things don't feel like they belong in Star Wars, like the aesthetic doesn't work. And I think when you see Dirge, he is to you some combination of the Batman villain Bane with a professional wrestler.
Mhm.
And you might
Yeah.
like those things, but not in Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this look like when I'd go by the comic shop in 97? Yep. I don't know if I want it in Star Wars. Yep.
Yes. He is absolutely a Star Wars villain drawn by Jim Lee. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, I liked Dirge back in the day because he heightened Obi-Wan by being a villain for Obi-Wan. And there's some things that as I watch the series, we'll get into that I was really of the mindset to re-examine Dirge. So I'm happy to dig into Dirge a little bit. I think for me, the only thing that felt like that I disliked or questioned about the actual show was when Yoda just blatantly mind tricks Typho to agree with him about saving Jedi.
I put that down too.
Because as the Jedi mind trick evolves over time, right? There are moments where its morality is questioned more, even to the point where the High Republic, there are two different names for it, and it's suggested that the mind trick is the name that kind of sanitizes it a little bit.
Yeah.
So the morality of the mind trick has been on people's minds for a long time, and it's a great discussion we've had of. If it's the mind trick or violence, it seems pretty great. If it's just like, I want tacos and my friend wants to get cheeseburgers, not really cool. And it feels like what Yoda does. Like, it feels like Padme's on Yoda's side, and he could have resolved that without just totally mind tricking Typho.
Yeah, no, and her reaction, it's kind of like, she's kind of telling Yoda that was fun. Let's not play a trick on him like that again. But I still, yeah, no, it totally reads like old man Yoda playing a trick, like a little tricksy. Yeah. It stood out to me. It's fun. It's like that playground conversation. Oh, what if you had a Jedi power? What would you do? Exactly like you said about tacos. Like Yoda's like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun, but again, we get it. It stood out.
Yeah, it stood out. And then the other thing for me is not actually about the show. It is about the way it is presented on Disney Plus. They took just, I think, the DVD edition, and they put it on Disney Plus. I don't know about any technical stuff because I'm not great at that. What I did respond to is I really wish that these episodes were edited together to kind of present them the way they were constructed, right? It's pretty fast and it's pretty random. Like that very first episode starts, it's got that classic Star Wars kind of shot of everybody looking out at the horizon, and then the music kicks in and then just goes boom. Gets turned off. And then other places we go to black for a moment, and I think other places it's a place where there was kind of a cliffhanger is sort of lighted over and it just strings together. I really think it would be great to have a version of this on Disney Plus. And I know it's a money thing. I know they're not going to spend the money right now, but man, would it be great to have something that's just like truly ends where the individual episodes ended as they were created, and has like a little title card, to separate them and let them breathe, and so that you can really process it the way it was created. Because unless you go on Wikipedia and know that they were these individual 3 to 5 minute episodes, you're going like, what is the structure of this? Where are we going? I mean, they hint at it with microseries, but you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, no, I think because we had the benefit of watching them when they came out or whatever it is. Like the first viewing, I was like, oh, these flow really well together, almost like the opposite of what you're saying. And until I sat down again and brought up the Wikipedia page and was looking at the episodes, and I was like, we got another release order problem. It's like
Yeah.
kind of all over the place. And that was kind of even how they were put out. But then I had a little bit more of, not an issue, but just like, yeah, I definitely see what you're saying and got it. Cause like the Mace one, there's a cliffhanger. And I was like, what's the episode then? Oh, that's the break. But you can't tell. It's so smooth.
Well, and it's part of the adventure serial fun of what they
Mm.
were. And I remember waiting. I remember being extremely worried about Obi-Wan in
Mhm.
this unstoppable villain from a 90s comic book
Yeah.
because there was a cliffhanger, and that's the adventure serial. And I'm not, I don't want Disney Plus to make people click through, 20 3 to 5 minute
Right.
episodes, but a little title card to preserve that energy would be cool.
Yeah. I could be on that.
All right, we got it. We got it out of the way of the things we disliked your question. Other things might pop up, but let's get into celebrating. We always talk about the big ideas, the big themes. We both talked about this is really a series that its goal is to be the serial adventure to celebrate the action of Star Wars. But what all did you feel like was at stake? What were the big ideas in this first volume to you?
Yeah, the big ones that just jump out right from the start is because Yoda says the word, whether the sentence, Clone Wars spread like fire throughout the galaxy. So you get the chaos of war and the overwhelming nature of war. I'm thinking specifically of the Mace one of just like take Mace's force powers out, which I'm sure we'll discuss, but just the whole situation. And there's a lot of just clones being wiped out. You don't see them; it's a little blip on the screen from a distance, but um, and that boy who has it, what's his name? Paxi. I looked it up. The boy that watches the battle on Tatooine, like to just come over the hill and just see this is the war going throughout the galaxy, and it works for me. It works with Yoda's opening and that great shot I'll talk about again, but just him riding into battle. But it's like starts with so quiet and intimate and Star Wars like, and then all of a sudden, boom! It's this war like we had not really seen before, and coming out of Attack of the Clones, what we were really excited to maybe get. And I think we got it to a certain degree in Revenge of the Sith, but even not to George's standards, and probably the reason this Clone Wars animated series came about. So, anyways, I love that. Then we got Anakin's growing power and his growing anger, big themes as well, but all part of just this overwhelming time in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, I really went to the same place. I think kind of narratively, there are definitely some story beats, and I feel like this first volume as they've collected, the real plot driver is Anakin's maturity, right? That just kind
Yeah.
of gets raised as the main tension. We get that scene early on where there's the kind of the push and pull for Anakin's soul, where Palpatine thrusts him into action and separates him from Obi-Wan, and then we check in again when Anakin is determined to follow Asajj, and Obi-Wan tries to tell him no, and the we learn that in this story, Asajj is basically a tool of not just Dooku, but specifically Sidious to push Anakin toward the dark side, and that's where we end up with a great lightsaber fight and him screaming, tattered, holding her red lightsaber in his mechanical hand. So it's definitely Anakin's maturity that even gets called up exactly right of Obi-Wan saying it's
Right.
not your skills, it's your maturity.
Yeah.
So narratively, that's definitely the big thing. But I think for me, almost because we've got to see versions of that story in the actual prequel movies, in this
Mhm.
Clone Wars, in the Clone Wars animated, the 3D Clone Wars, I think the thing that's even more affecting to me is the other thing you're talking about, which I really thought of as like the unrelenting march of violence.
Yeah.
Because of that great stylized animation, we get to see all over the place, row after row of mechanized droids and weapons. I did not look up the name of the actual device in the Mace arc. I just called it the Dantooine Ground Pounder.
That's the one. It's a seismic tank. I'm sure it has an actual name. I can look it up.
Yeah.
Doing ground pounder is the best thing.
But it's just, I mean, that sounds like a burger you'd, get a prize for finishing. But it's just so brutal, right? Of just
Yes.
a picture of the horror of the dark side as mechanical, of just boom, just so brutal and visceral to just crush people, to just pound the ground. But there's a lot of other images that really made me feel like, yeah, we're having the fun of the action, we're having the adventure
Mhm.
serial, we're having isn't it cool what Jedi can do? But there are lots of little images that give you that feeling of creeping dread and violence that once it started, it's just not gonna stop,
Mm.
Getting that image or that line from Obi-Wan where he says, he's troubled by the Sith interest in Anakin, of that kind of sense of foreboding,
Mm.
the relentless kind of nature of the fight between Anakin and Asajj. Grievous in the final chapter is this
Right.
at least partially mechanized, just unstoppable killing machine. And this, Ken, you might not be able to follow me down this path, but really looking at it all from this filter made me appreciate Dirge more, because that's, I think, kind of
Mm.
the point of him being unstoppable. He's not a mechanic. He's almost more, organic. He's
Mm.
almost more like a precursor to the Drenger in some ways. But there was something powerful about that. He is a symbol of violence, and Obi-Wan uses all of this different violence to try to stop him. And even once Obi-Wan has literally traveled into the heart of darkness, he is inside the violent being and explodes it from the inside. The last shot is Obi-Wan contemplating Dirge's helmet as the fluid of his exploded body is creeping back together. And it's just this great image of unrelenting violence.
I can follow you down the theme of that for sure. I wish Dirge didn't have a big, weird hunchback and tiny legs like Bluto, but no, I could, because I think that's part of it. Also with Anakin too, it's just like, and it carries to any other Star Wars story during this era of just like the chaos of war and everything, and how it's just the Jedi are in it and they're leading it, and therefore Anakin has to be separated or has to be somewhat left alone at times, and to make these mistakes and grow. And then on the Dirge side, I mean, it's listed. I can show everyone my notes, so I'm not lying. It's listed a little later of the him and the Dirge and the Lancer droids. I actually do like that sequence. So I can get behind you on what it represents. Absolutely. And it's creepy in its own way, and creep has a place in Star Wars. But so no stretch for me to go down that path with you.
Okay. 2 thumbs up on Dirge thematically, but not visually.
I mean, I don't know.
We'll see what happens with him in the comics. Last thing for me I was going to say on this is another moment that's I felt like I was rewarded by leaving my other Clone Wars baggage at the door and just enjoying this for this is enjoying some of the things that are different. Like that moment in that first episode, I think does such a great job of setting everything up and, reintroducing you to the characters. And here we go, war. But what a really different moment to see Obi-Wan looking out at the troops and just hearing him think to himself, being inside his head, where he says, I doubt even Master Qui-Gon could have prepared a Jedi for this.
Mm-hmm.
Even before you get into the fun and the thrill of all the action, it does set up a little bit of that sense of horror. And there's a really great connection to where it goes, where when, Anakin is brutally hacking at Asajj, he sees those flashes of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, and it's a really nice way to kind of tie it back together. Of even that little bit of haunting, could have Qui-Gon prepared Anakin for this,
Yeah, no, that was a nice little touch. There's a lot of little beautiful moments like that against this big backdrop. That kind of stuff. I love that. I love Padme, the active queen is what I called her in here. Even though she's a senator, I get that, but just coming out of attack the clones, aggressive negotiation. She's not afraid of that stuff. All that kind of part of what's going on in the war.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you see the larger themes of Star Wars explored? I mean, obviously what we're talking about, Anakin's fall and, the horror of war, those are pretty big Star Wars themes, but were there other big Star Wars themes that you felt watching this first volume?
There's a little bit. There's some good stuff about fear and the views of fear, how you can use fear as a weapon. The great exchange with Ventress and Dooku, and how he basically says, "Nah, you're not Sith because you have fear." Though I would say my argument was like, does Dooku actually believe that? Do the Sith believe that? Because it seems like they are completely fear motivated, including not want to lose their power, and they just overlook that. And I love playing with that and that kind of maybe move past fear, go to hatred, and that's where your strength comes from.
That's the way I take it. That's a part of the lie of the dark side, especially somebody like Dooku, who really sees himself as just this I have believed Jedi BS, but I
Mhm.
am a person of power, and I know that fear is a path to the dark side. So I know that's a vulnerability for other people, but I have moved beyond that to just having my anger give me power. And I think the truth we see is that there is still fear when you're a Sith, but I think Dooku's lying to himself about that.
Yes, right. Yeah. No, I agree with you there. And so that does carry over to me of just when we keep talking about this chaos of war thing and dirge can elicit fear, the Tatooine ground pounder can elicit a fear. And what do you do with that fear? And do we spend a ton of time digging in deep? No, but sometimes it is the action showing you how they deal with the fear or how they push past it even. And I think that's one of the big themes prevalent for me. That's big in Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that's great, and you can always have those great moments of discussion with when Jedi are determined to rescue one another. Is that absolutely just a preservation of life, or are they dancing on the edge of fearing loss? Like Yoda goes so far as to mind trick Typho because he is not going to lose Luminara and Barriss on Ilum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So even Dirge works in that because Dirge, I'd be afraid of Dirge.
I'd be afraid of Dirge.
He'd be like, I heard you talking about me.
That big deep laugh.
Yeah.
I love all of the just images of the organic versus the mechanical. I think it's really just pulling out the imagery of Attack of the Clones, of the sort of the fear of all of these, the lack of humanity of all of these droids and all of this weaponry and all these clones with their matching helmets of war. It really plays with that of seeing all of these um, very these weapons of war that are all mechanical and they're all devoid of humanity, like the ground pounder.
Mhm,
But then we
mhm.
also get to see them at work in natural environments that would be beautiful otherwise, like Dantooine and the Mon Cala oceans. So I
Yeah.
think really playing with those great Star Wars themes of organic versus mechanical. And then for me, the other one is I do think there is a light touch of reminding uh, the reminder that there's power in working together, right?
Mhm.
The way that Palpatine gets Anakin to be vulnerable is by separating him and by insisting that he be separated from Obi-Wan and go off on his own mission.
Right.
And Obi-Wan doesn't want that in the beginning, and then he doesn't want that when Anakin is chasing Asajj, and Anakin
Mhm.
even eventually admits that it was a trap. So there's this real value of Obi-Wan saying, "We are stronger together. Don't go off alone." That's Padme's story,
Mhm.
as you say, Senator Queen of Action is just really not okay with knowing that Yoda might be in danger and just sitting by. And then Luminara's very interesting mantra is very much about connection when she and Barriss are
Oh,
in the
right. Yeah.
cave on Ilum. Her mantra is the crystal is the heart of the blade, the heart is the crystal of the Jedi is the crystal of the Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. That could be just a great tongue twister to
Yeah.
memorize,
Yeah.
but its essential message is everything is connected. We are all connected.
Indeed. Good stuff. Yeah. The Ilum stuff's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, how do you think that this series inspired Lucas to keep telling the story? Like I'm sure there's some great interviews out here that has different people saying the answer, but just kind of as fans,
Mhm.
especially the journey that you and I got to go on when we were very aware of this, of like these came out, then Revenge of the Sith came out, and then just a little while later, Lucas is making a Clone Wars animated series himself. When you watch these, do you imagine George Lucas sitting on the couch next to you, going, "Oh, hot damn, I gotta make more of this."
That's almost exactly it, especially on the couch next to me. I had some leftover Thai food. I'm sure he'd enjoy that as well. Yeah, no, because look, again, Tartakovsky had to work with them, had to present them, and I intentionally did not dig too far down this path, the behind the scenes path, like I said. But there was the Mace episode is Tartakovsky's like favorite episode, and he was worried about presenting that to George. George signed off on it. George Dirge is supposed to come back, but George says make it Grievous, introduce Grievous. So they're working enough together. But George is making Revenge of the Sith. He is in it, right? He's trying to figure that out when he's coming out of Tactical and he's doing that. So how can you not watch this? Because we're getting these ideas. I'm not putting me on the level of George. I'm just saying we're watching this going, oh man, I wish you could go a little deeper in the clones like we eventually do. Oh, I wish we could analyze this like we eventually do. You got to imagine George just going, I got some ideas. I'm going to dig a little deeper. And then I didn't get my 7 battles and 7 planets. I'm not going to do that. Hey, let's keep going with this. Let's figure this out. And let's also go in a different direction. I absolutely can see that kind of is the case.
Yeah, and maybe it was always the plan. Maybe this was a test run, but there's something about the path from this 2D Clone Wars to the Clone Wars we all know that just it makes me happy. I also thought about the 7 battles on 7 worlds. Like, he wanted to have more room to. I think Lucas wanted to have more room in Revenge of the Sith to play with the Clone Wars, and I think there are 2 sides of it. There's the heart of the adventure serial. I think when I watch all the Clone Wars stuff, both this series and the 3D one, there's so much in it that I feel that I imagine what Lucas felt when he was a kid and he saw the Flash Gordon serials and just wanted to explore all those worlds and what could those aliens look like and what would it look like if these aliens fought these Hawk people, and just wanting to explore all that and see all that is so present. Just the celebration of the big, weird, pulpy adventure serial. And I think that the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars absolutely celebrates that with absolutely a touch of heart, a touch of the horror of war, but more an emphasis on the thrill and the fun of the adventure serial. So I can really imagine Lucas going, I could really make all that Star Wars adventure serial fun that I always wanted to see, and I could do a bunch more deeper character exploration.
Yeah.
I can make those clones be characters, be humans. And I know Filoni did a lot of development as well, but I just really imagine it from that perspective of I can really take my time and have the elbow room to totally marry the thrilling adventure serial to the heart and the humanity,
Yep. Yep. And maybe one day someone will maybe send me a link to the actual interview where George talking about, I don't know. No, it's a weird headcanon choice for me, but yeah, I see that.
Yes. We'll look that up. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to discuss some of our favorite characters or arcs, action moments, comedy moments, all those great details, all that in just a moment.
Hey, ForceCenter friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, ForceCenter's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars-loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more, so be sure to head on over to jennylanda.com, that's JENILANDA.com, for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa, and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138.
And we are back to finish our discussion of Volume 1 of the MICROSERIES Vintage Clone Wars. So we're going to dive into some of the details. Ken, was there any particular... did you gravitate to any particular character or little story arc within this first volume?
I said some prayers and thought about some things during the break. Dirge is the best. Now, I want to apologize to Dirge fans. I don't want to come off ever being too hard or harsh. I get it. I love things other people don't too in Star Wars. So there you go. No, the thing I gravitated to, just there's great purpose to the Ventress story, like you said, Palpatine, and what's the line Palpatine says, key to the destruction of the Jedi or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Big stuff. But I just love just kind of the rivalry of Anakin and Ventress, if you can call it that, not to turn it into like some sports event, but just it's pretty intense. It's a great big fight, and it's very memorable. That's one thing, even when this micro series is kind of in the foggy back corners of my mind as a Star Wars fan, I was always like, oh, yeah, that Adventures Anakin stuff is good. And Adventures comes back and gets, I think she even gets better once, especially Katie Lucas starts writing her. I love Ventures as a character, but there's some really good stuff here. So there's that one. And then the other one quickly is just Obi-Wan as a general. Obi-Wan's just in the war, having a little heart, having some conscience, but also being in the war and being damn good at it is something I was watching closer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for me, I enjoyed all of it, but the three arcs that popped the most for me is the Asajj stuff, both with Anakin at the end, just really memorable, really powerful, really, especially back in the day, like, wow, this is, lightsaber fight where Anakin really goes too far, and the rain on the lightsabers is probably one of my favorite Star Wars images. It's great, incredibly well done. But I really enjoyed the Asajj Dooku chapters, because some of the stuff that's in this micro series is, we see it play out, similar ideas play out differently in the later Clone Wars. But that initial meeting between Asajj and Dooku, is referenced in lots of other things. But really seeing it and seeing this terrifying wannabe Sith warrior in a kind of arena battle area that's really great. Dooku's apartment is great. Everything about that little bit of Dooku seeming like, yes, she'll kill Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
And Sidious is like, well, actually, maybe. Don't worry about it too much. Like, that dynamic between them is great. And then for me, the Obi-Wan Dirge stuff, partially just because of, being a big Obi-Wan fan. I really take your point about the general. I think that's something that feels very similar between the two Clone Wars, is Obi-Wan having that sort of like deep sigh, don't want to be in war, but since we are, I'll do my duty and I'll get through it as quickly and as reasonably as possible. And he's really got that vibe in this of, got the clones under command, got the full clone armor. I remember my jaw being on the floor watching that for the first time, of Obi-Wan in the full clone armor. And I really appreciated it even more by the end of where the Dirge story goes. Of, it seems like just such a great analogy for the Clone Wars of Obi-Wan, like, drove my lightsaber through him. Nope. Oh, hacked him apart. Nope. Oh, climbed inside him. And I allowed myself to be swallowed by evil in an attempt to destroy it. It's just like Obi-Wan is trapped in an analogy for the Clone Wars. I love that. And then the final one is the Mace's adventure on Dantooine. I think might be my favorite of all of it, because it is in some ways the most explosive. How hyper powerful can a Jedi be? Almost doesn't feel in line with sort of modern canon of like that Jedi aren't quite as powerful as Mace is portrayed. But I think the power of it for me is having these pillars on either end, which is in some ways the most horrific thing in this volume. That seismic tank, I won't keep calling it a ground pounder. The seismic tank is so horrific on one end, and then on the other hand, seeing this farm kid, Paxi Silo, very Luke-like, right? On this looks like agrarian farmer life, seeing both the adventure of, I'm seeing that, and the utter horror of what he's seeing, but then ultimately just having this moment with like a story he's going to be able to tell for decades, of this moment that he gave his water to this Jedi. I think the action of Mace is doing is some of the just most bonkers, amazing Jedi action, but it's just really grounded by the humanity of seeing it through this kid's eyes and the utter horror of what Mace is trying to stop.
Yeah, no, and the use of the complete lack of dialogue, other than I think what the droids, right? I can't, maybe clones say something, but Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful in its own harshness. Its own harsh way. That episode.
Yeah, it is harshly beautiful.
Harshly beautiful.
Is there anything in this volume of Clone Wars that you wish was firmly canon? Because this is, vintage, expanded universe, legends, whatever you want to call it. This is not, for being super technical about canon. Some things get pulled from it, but this is not super technical canon. Is there anything that you wish was absolutely 100% firmly canon?
Yeah, and just talking about these two, this is the first two seasons. There's probably a lot of stuff in the next one I'd probably say, but I went with general stuff here. The Battle of Munilinst, if that's the right way to say it, and then the Battle of Mon Calamari. Now, they might be canon in some other way. Someone can point to some references. I like a lot about the battles and what happened there. So I just would love to know that, yep, that counts. It's all part of this war that was gone on there. And then just the detail. I'm trying to remember if it pops up anywhere else. I apologize. But Anakin and Asajj fighting on Yavin 4 is something I like. I like it.
Okay, yeah. I think for me, the Asajj stuff is, her meeting Dooku is referenced and discussed, I believe, in both Dark Disciple and Dooku Jedi Lost, right?
Yeah.
But this additional clarity that her initial goal was just to provoke Anakin, I can't remember if that's been brought into canon or not. So I really like. I think one of the things that sometimes when I'm watching the 3D Clone Wars is that's canon. Is I miss meeting Asajj, and I really really like meeting Asajj for the first time and seeing the moment that she and Dooku met.
Yeah, no, I'll submit that one as well too, because you're right. It's been vaguely referenced, but even the conversation when she just kind of woof appears and Dooku is sitting there and praising her for killing his host. I like that one.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and I'm so sorry. I'm happy that Dirge is coming back.
The ForceCenter War, the Dirge discussion.
Yes, the Dirge Wars have begun, Ken. I'm so curious to see how they use the character. And I really like it. I think it is just kind of a best of both worlds that we have these stories and we can enjoy them. And, canon can be what you want it to be. You can care about canon, you can not care about canon. These are stories in a galaxy far, far away. But I also like the real, the Thrawn approach of it from modern canon of, these characters don't have to be married to the stories you knew before. There could be an essence of the character that can be sort of reinvented, reinterpreted, and put solidly into modern canon. I'm happy for Dirge to get that because there are people, as you know from being tweeted at weekly, who love Dirge, and I'm very happy for those people. And I'm really curious to see from the visual of him and from his story here, what gets interpreted into modern canon, what bits do the writers and artists pick up on and say, this is how this character makes sense in the way we're talking about Star Wars now?
Yes. Regarding Dirge's return, to quote Palpatine, we will watch your career with great interest. I'm very curious to see what they do and how they do it. Because I do agree with that. Jackson is an example. I mean, we talked about already, but I don't like Jackson. I've grown up with the rabbit character. And then that story. And from a certain point of view, I was like, oh, I get it. I'm on his side now. So I'm happy to revisit any character, even Dash Rendar or anything. I'm happy to revisit it. And because I think you can find better ways to do it, or a more updated way to do it, or just a completely brand new way to introduce an old favorite.
Yep, because there's nothing wrong with sometimes in Star Wars going, that character looks cool, so let's bring him back for looking cool, because that is a part of Star Wars. Speaking of looking cool, let's talk favorite action moments, because there's so much great action. That's one of the key things to enjoy about the Volume 1 of Clone Wars. What were some of your favorite action moments?
We have to talk about the opening shot. I mentioned it, but the coming out of that kind of very sparse opening credit sequence, just Star Wars, we're going. But this is one of the ones when you talked about up top of this is why I know I didn't watch it on the internet first. I watched this on my big tube TV back in the 2003 of just an opening shot footstep or running. You hear the center running, and then Yoda comes riding in. You're like, Yoda, oh my god, yeah. I remember I just was been cheering him in Attack of the Clones, yes. And then boom, everything else behind him, the war is happening. I really love that sequence. I would take that almost beat for beat in the movie.
Oh, yeah. Right now I am on Amazon.com looking at the Hasbro Star Wars Legacy Yoda and Kaibuck action figure.
There you go.
Very, very tempted because it is just a great, great visual that it looks like it's going to be so minimal and so sparse, and then it explodes like that.
Love that. Yeah,
absolutely great stuff. For me, I got several moments of action that I enjoyed, so I'll share a couple and throw it back to you.
I got a few. Yeah.
I remember being really excited to see Kit Fisto in full action, to see
Totally.
topless Kit Fisto, and what lightsaber underwater, cool. So there's so many moments I could pick from that, but I really love that he uses the Force to turn water into a hard destructive bubble and throws it at the little crab cannon.
Yeah,
that was a really cool moment, of just
power of hard water.
The power of hard water. Yeah. And I think that's, that was a magic of these back in the day that I was able to, let myself tap back into, of like, let's just go get really imaginative of what can Force users do, anything, right? That was great. I love the visual. I love everything about the gladiator sequence with Asajj, but specifically that visual of her dropping ceiling rocks on the gladiators, and especially when that great sensation of speed as they're rushing to the camera and then they're suddenly stopped by being crushed by a boulder.
Right. Oh yeah. No, that whole sequence is a big one.
Yeah, but that one's a big one. This is one that I had to take a picture of, a screen capture. It's just very great the way the shot is held for a while when Obi-Wan is first facing Dirge. All the stuff with the Lancers and the droid is great, but when he thrusts the lightsaber into his chest and then just holds it there for a long time and nothing happens. Great beat and a great image.
Yeah, actually, I put the whole Lancer troop battle, I put that down. It's a unique sequence, right? I can't recall seeing that anywhere else too much, or at least that much detail in Star Wars. And it's interesting, especially now following Mandalorian, to see IG droids kind of front and center in that way.
And on bikes, right?
On bikes, yeah. It's a biker gang of IG droids led by a 2,000-year-old vampire. It's great stuff. I like, it's real different. It's brutal. It's I love the Obi-Wan stuff and that. So yeah, I'm there for that.
Yeah, the helmet getting knocked off. Yeah, great stuff. So what else do you have on your list of action moments?
Yeah, a little just Grievous overall. Just and remember, this is, you'll still hear people go like, Grievous was so much better in that series, and I don't disagree that I don't want to take away the point of Grievous in Revenge of the Sith, which is I've said in the past, I've said on ForceCenter, Grievous at times could be a disappointing character to me, but I've started to really appreciate the version we have in the 3D series and what his purpose was and his theme was in Revenge of the Sith more than I ever did. So, but you can't, Grievous is dark, evil, and badass. And that's, this is 2003 and 4. We liked badass things a lot more back then, right? So that, but the quick ones there, I really do. There's that one little moment where Anakin has the clones shoot where the droid fighters aren't.
Yeah.
I thought that was visually looked really good. It was a great, just a great, beyond just even his Force skills, but just his outside of the box kind of thinking in battle. This is, Anakin, the great pilot that we hear all the way back in New Hope. So that worked for me. And then the little moment on the Battle of Mon Calamari when the Republic cruisers become ships. I like that.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah. So let me ask you about Grievous. When you saw Revenge of the Sith in the theater, did you feel oversold on Grievous?
Yeah. No, that's definitely probably factors into some of it. And I think it was after the movie that I read was that Labyrinth of Evil. And then I got kind of Mace hurt him. That's why. But that's the thing is I needed, I'll say, when you don't engage with the story presented, a big theme here in Star Wars, you can maybe some of those questions that we all have and should have about these movies The answers, you want the answers to be very surface level. And so this idea of why is Grievous hacking and coughing? I didn't like that. I didn't like that. You don't see it for what the story is telling you. You want an answer. So the answer is, oh, Mace hurt him. Mace hurt him. That's why. That's why. And so, yeah, you see Grievous in this series. He is formidable. He is scary. He is killing Jedi, which is something, that's not good. We don't really see that other than, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, right? It's kind of grown up the only ones we'd seen to this point. So it absolutely, you go from this and just the overall concept and anticipation of this character to him hacking and coughing and running away. Yeah, it could lend yourself to a little disappointment.
Yeah, but great stuff in this. The terror of him is absolutely great. I think for me, a couple other action moments. That whole Mace section is amazing. There are a bunch of different beats I could pull from that. There's definitely some stuff in here that's kind of like it doesn't entirely line up with canon. Like there's a lot of just using the Force to make blasters go away, blaster bolts go away. But the move that I really like, it's so stylized and it's so great, is when he reaches out to the one B2 battle droid and pulls all of the bolts and screws out. So that one falls apart. And just when you think, well, it couldn't be any cooler than that, throws all the bolts and screws at the other two droids, right? I mean, that was just like, that's like, it's tapping into, what we saw in Attack of the Clones with, the party's over and not only did I cut your head off, Django, then I went back and looked at it. It's that part of what Mace Windu is he's under control. He's not of the dark side, but he is fierce. And those kind of moves aren't just like I need to defend myself. Is like, I want you to know that I took you apart. I want you to feel it. I want you to think about what you did in the last moments of your sentience.
No, and that's what Tartakovsky said. Is I loved it, but I was afraid to show George because Mace, he might have been just too powerful. But I guess Leland Shee kind of stood up and defended it and cited other examples in the movies. So then we could break down some stuff. But again, there's just some really just beautiful violence in that sequence.
Yeah, there really is. And my last two moments are from more beautiful violence, the Asajj and Anakin battle. But the beginning of it, talk about creeping horror. The horrific shots of Asajj smashing clones into trees with the Force and just throwing them around and just picking them off one by one. It's so horrible, but it's such great action.
And R4, man.
Poor R4. Yeah. That's one of those moments that's different of like, all right, bye R2. Let's go R4. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
But then it works so well that he's got that Anakin does have that attachment to not only his men, but even his droid,
Totally.
And she successfully sets him off. And the final thing for me is, like I said, I think it might be one of my favorite images in Star Wars. That's a long list, but the rain on the lightsabers is just so great, and that sizzle, that whole thing is constructed so well as a piece of action, as a piece of animation, the way it escalates and changes with the environment. But that rain beat is just amazing and always will be to me.
Yeah, no, and watching it the first time, that's when I started to maybe calm my attitude down on what are you trying to prove by folding your arms while you're watching this series? Like, that's cool and that's powerful and it stands the test of time. Enjoy that, Ken. And I went, okay, you're right. Give me a White Claw.
I'm gonna have a White Claw with my lunch when we're done talking. So let's move on to some comedy moments. Now, there is not as much comedy, I would argue, in this version of Clone Wars. But what moments made you laugh or chuckle or smile into your White Claw?
There's a lot of flipping off of robes. Kit does it so well. You mentioned topless Kit. Anakin when he just and it turns into a beat with 3PO, which is fine. But I just love that he just gets up and is like, boom, see, dramatic, robe is off. I like that.
It's so funny because like the comedy beat is it hitting 3PO, and that's like a very light version of the kind of 3PO comedy that's in the prequel movies. But Anakin, it almost feels like it's a part of their training of take your robe off theatrically. Like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan kind of do it. They kind of make a thing of it when they see Darth Maul, but Anakin's is so big of like, I'm getting my ship and going to war. And so I throw my cloak away like Lady Gaga making, a costume change in a concert,
Exactly. You got old Magic Mike Fisto over there doing that before he goes for a swim. It works. It works.
It really works. Great stuff. What else you got?
I do like Kit Fisto smiling. Come on, that's been something we've known since Attack of the Clones, and so I love that seeing that continue to go. There's a couple moments with so during the Dooku Venture stuff, I love when he's sitting there just watching this brutal gladiator fight, and he's got his legs crossed, and I just was like, he is very exquisite, which taps into Dooku's exquisite pajamas later in the 3D series and Battlefront 2. I was like, I love Dooku in that way. Is it super funny? No, but it's just a great character beat.
No, there's the second one I wrote down too, because
Nice.
he's the gentleman terror. He's the gentleman nightmare, and being at this, death battle with legs crossed and hands folded politely, like he's at the opera, is really funny.
Yeah, I like Sandhill's quote, "Have mercy on me, I'm merely just a banker." That works. Kenobi saying, "I believe I created quite the mess, haven't I?" Or something like that. I may have written down wrong. But then the clone responds just deadpan with no emotion. Yes, sir.
Yeah. In that same section, I really like it when Dirge has initially exploded and Obi-Wan is drenched in dirge fluid and just breathing heavy, and it's almost like he's just kind of like he is coming to terms before he loses it in front of his clones. Like he has to accept that he can't start swearing and lose himself.
Obi-Wan's thinking, I just want to go sit in a hut for about 19 years. Oh, this is a mess. What am I doing?
Anything else for you?
A couple of the Mason. There's the Mason's eyebrows of. There's a great oh yeah moment. That I think he says to that kind of expresses to the droids, and I love that. I love that episode. I don't want anyone to think I don't, but that moment of oh yeah almost makes up for the punching, which I don't know if I might hate Mace's super force punching so much that I love it.
Yeah, the super force punching was right on the edge for me. Like I think seeing Mace like do the massive force pushes and pulling the nuts and bolts out, like it's almost like the animation is a heightened form of Star Wars storytelling, and so the action is a little bit heightened, but the force punch is like that. Like I can normally turn these things off, but that triggers my like. Is that canon? It really does. Like
yeah.
Can Jedi really? I mean, they do punch the droids fairly often, I guess, in Clone Wars, but maybe it's something Mace is trained to, force punch. And I like to picture he's not actually making contact. There's just like a little buffer.
Yeah. No, look again. I legitimately, I think I hate it so much that I want to watch it on a loop. It's just like I get a super cut. And then the final thing, I call it it's a Mean Joe Green moment. If anyone remembers that old commercial of a football legend Joe Green getting a Coke or something or a Pepsi or whatever it was from a kid in the hallway before going to a football game. It's kind of a famous commercial for our generation. So I just that moment with Paxi is a real Mean Joe Green Mace moment of just hey, you kid. Can I have your towel? Yeah, here's the water. Yeah, it's funny. I like it.
It's really good. Of just like, I might be a little thirsty after what I just did. Thanks, kid. Yeah, it is very funny. For me, the Yoda Padme section, I really do like. But I really liked Yoda's delivery on this one line. There's a bunch of funny Yoda shots where he looks utterly shocked.
Yeah.
When there's that moment where he is realizing that he is maybe not listening to Padme, and she kind of looks away, and he looks totally shocked. And to just do it as a screen capture, it looked like Padme just said something horrific to Yoda. So that one really amused me. But the delivery, when he's making the argument for Ilum, he says to Ilum, "We must go now." He really holds the now, and it's super funny.
What's the I was gonna write it down. After the Typho mind trick, and Padme's like, Captain, make for Ilum with the best speed possible, or whatever the line was. I was going to write that down because it was like, are you speaking stuff like Yoda too, or what?
And then I think we cannot get through this episode without referencing the collection of Jedi that General Grievous is terrifying in that final chapter. But the Shaggy Jedi, I do think is funny. I thought it was funny back in the day, and I enjoy now. It's a thing we still talk about of getting to see a few more of those Jedi. Are like, you're attached to the Force, but you're not the greatest.
Zoinks! What are we gonna do here?
Yeah, and that Shaggy Jedi worked for me. Do you like Shaggy Jedi?
I do like Shaggy Jedi. Someone's got to go.
Yeah, whose name is Shaggy with some apostrophes.
Yes.
It's classic Star Wars style. Were there any specific designs that were unique to this of ships or planets or weapons that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, there's some smaller ones. And this is why it's complicated to keep up with me sometimes with what I love and don't like in Star Wars. You got Dirge. A lot of people are like, man, Dirge is awesome, big and bulky and scary. And I'm like, nah, I don't like that. But then meanwhile, I'm like, the Quarren crab cannon, give me that. So that whole sequence is so bizarre because it's all underwater. They got like tridents and Aquaman swimming around, and they got a crab cannon. Why wouldn't you have a crab cannon? There's crabs swimming around you probably. Like I like the crab cannon.
Yeah, it just makes sense to build everything that way.
Yeah.
That's the way, architecture and weaponry makes sense to them. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I love the design of Dooku's castle that Asajj wakes up in. Those
Yeah.
shots of just, it looks, there's something about it, and I do not mean this at all as an insult. It's got a almost Looney Tunes vibe. It's like Wile E. Coyote woke up in a nightmare.
Yeah.
There's something about that aesthetic that it's very Star Wars, but it's very classic animation too. I just love that.
Well, I think it also sets up with the Ventress being there, that you could go, hey, let's go revisit Dooku's house with his pajamas. I think this gave us that.
Exactly, and I like to think this is just another one of his homes.
Yes. Yeah. He owns many coastal homes.
What else do you have for planets or ships or weapons?
Yeah. Cities or planets. What's it? Harnaden, which is the capital city of Monolinst. A lot of names Ken can almost say.
I think the second end, strangely, is silent. I think.
Sure.
I think it's Munilist.
Mulan. Now I can't say it at all. Anyways, that place, Joseph. Look, it's just a city of old timey New York banks, and I want to live there a little bit more in some other stories. And again, if someone says, it's an episode so and so, yeah, maybe I forgot. Every time they kept going back to it, and that kind of the backdrop, the old animation style of just designing a backdrop that doesn't really move. It's not dynamic. It's just there. I really like the design of the banking clan living in a bank city.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wrote down in the Rick Ollier line of the entire city is made of banks. It's a really, really cool design. And I think it is one of those moments that does underscore some of the themes and ideas that are going on in the Clone Wars in general, that's one of the first places they need to go is,
Right.
the place that is at least partially to the Republic's knowledge, to the Jedi's knowledge, funding this and just remembering that very Lucas perspective that, the idea that there is profit to be made off of conflict and off of war was not introduced to Star Wars in The Last Jedi. Put it that way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Couple ones for me, and I'll kick it back to you. I actually really do love the seismic tank, and I don't remember loving it back then, but I in studying it more this time around, especially it has like that old sand crawler kind of vibe to the color scheme and the design. But that shot in the inside when it like launched, when it's like resetting and the pounder, the ground pounder, goes up and in the little tiny droids on the walkway next to it. I kind of like it, and it's big and it's pulpy and superhero-y villain type thing, but I could see that working in some other Star Wars story, so I did like that one.
Yeah, no, the seismic tank is big, and it did have this like a weaponized version of the sandcrawler vibe, which was really cool. Final one for me, because I was going to talk about Moonlist as well, is Asajj's solar sailor ship.
Yes,
I've always liked Dooku's that has the kind of the literal sail. But this was such a cool design of a ship. The solar part, the solar sail part looks cool, but just a great contrast to the great Jedi starfighter, and the design of the ship being so cool really heightened all of that zipping around with Anakin and Asajj.
What's Anakin as the Azure Angel? I think's the name of his ship. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that too. And then a final one for me though, I actually wanted Kenobi and Clone Gear you talked about, but it's really cool. It's him in the helmet and everything. I love that.
Yeah.
But I got to say, Ventress herself. Now, look, I love what we get in Clone Wars, and we just kind of, even with her ship, we got a little more updated version. We spend more time with the character. She goes through some changes. I've always liked this one. It's a bold, regal goth warrior here, and I kind of always like this version of Ventress.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that's just kind of I don't know, pure is a weird word. It's just it's so specific, it's so minimal and so powerful
Totally, yeah.
that it really, really works well. Yeah, yeah. And I'll add to the Kenobi full armor thing. I think a part of it gets its power in that it is such a knight-like look,
Right.
including literally, having a lance. That's really what adds to
Mm.
that image of really connecting the idea of a Jedi Knight to actual imagery of real knights.
Yeah, again, yeah, it's a pretty unique sequence actually when you think about it, and again, testament to a lot of the concepts introduced in this show.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll move on to connections to larger canon. We often do talk about those of the little beats that are callbacks, repetition. It's really fascinating to see what was in this and what wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Given that sometimes one of the things that people complained about back in the day with the prequel movies was too many nods, too many shared lines, but this had some as well. So, what grabbed you as you were watching?
Well, so there's the Anakin one of "I Have You Now" was kind of, I liked hearing it. I've never had too much of a problem with Anakin kind of having some catchphrases. It's like us saying hubris. Like we got some words and phrases we like. So I like that kind of stuff. The bad feelings about this. But I gotta say, I didn't go down a list. And if you have a list, let's go to. I just wrote something that I just said, let's talk about Ilum.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I do have a list, but it's almost all surface stuff. But let's talk about Ilum. Let's start there.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us we love Ilum, or the concept of Ilum, and the Gathering episodes and Arc and Clone Wars is so good. And then we spent a lot of people speculating Mandalorian. Do they go to Ilum and Fallen Order? We do go to Ilum, and it's so cool. And then to get that confirmation that Starkiller Base was Ilum, finally to get that after many thought that we're all obsessed in our own way with Ilum. I kind of overlooked that it didn't debut here. It was I think I was trying to look it up. There's a novel called Jedi Quest from like 2001, I believe, was kind of the first place a young like teenage Anakin has to go there with Obi-Wan. So that's kind of where the concept, but I this is again where I was like, Ken, you better give this series credit, because this is pretty much Ilum. It's like, this is what you like about it. It's there. I love kind of the design. It's the introduction of crystals. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about crystals inside the Jedi weapons back then. And I forget that they do in this episode. They do in this Ilum arc. So I just like that this does set up the Ilum that we come to know and love later.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that. The way you're framing this, that we could look at it now. It's like, yeah, they're Ilum, but like the power of seeing that and being able to kind of feel the history of this storytelling in Star Wars.
Right.
That there's a lot about crystals. We see the crystals. We see the crystals fall. We see this sacred ritual that happens here. This sacred temple, and that it is being, sort of not just attacked, but truly violated by Dooku, who's using his Jedi knowledge and sending, mechanical droids. There's all this great, rich stuff, which really lines up with modern storytelling.
Yeah.
But if I recall correctly, it's just crystals, no kyber.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
It's just crystals. So you get this mix of you're seeing Ilum as we know Ilum. The entranceway doesn't look that much different. It's
Yeah.
stylized and it's different, but it's the same vibe. And yet there's just like one little detail missing,
Yep.
But I think what I really loved back in the day is like, hey, I can't remember when I first heard. I think somebody gave me the original Star Wars visual dictionary, or maybe I heard I heard about the crystal before that,
Yeah.
But anyway, the that was one of the first times I remember started thinking about it, because the visual dictionary has the picture of it,
Yes.
and it has the little information that says like a Jedi needs to use the Force, has to use the Force to insert the crystal. You can't put it in by hand,
Yeah.
So I remember sitting down and seeing this one and just thinking, I'm sure I did not listen to a word that Luminara was saying, because I was so mesmerized Barriss using the Force to bring all these things together was such a cool image. And yeah, full credit to really on screen, not just Ilum, but everything that Ilum represents of
Yeah.
these natural crystals that this power isn't just coming from like we made a laser. It's coming from something organic, and there's this sense of history and even religion, and certainly the sacred to the Jedi's relationship with Ilum and their own lightsabers and the crystals and all of it.
Yeah, and you touched on something there. Just this, it may have come before. Again, even Ilum itself was in this novel, and there may have been, I know the Kyber crystal from Splinter of the Mind Eye, which is slightly different. But there's all this stuff. But I never stopped it, even after Attack of the Clones. I think it may be even because of Attack of the Clones, where Anakin's just losing lightsabers left and right, and Obi-Wan says it's pretty important, but there's no thought of crystals in the middle of that. I just wasn't in my mind as a fan, and this was the first one that made me even open to that possibility that, hey, those spiritual warrior monks, even their weapons might be spiritual in some way. I never really stopped to think about that. And sometimes I need a good reminder or need a good launching point to explore things more deeper. And this did do that.
Yeah, and I think that speech from Luminara, as much as it can sound like a Mad Lib, it really does drive home that like, oh, these aren't just the weapon that makes the most sense. These are full of symbolism, and I really like the power of that in that episode.
Totally. What's your list? I do want to hear your list.
Yeah. So the first thing, which just made me just thrilled because I forgot it was in there, is Darth Sidious. He has his little hologram walker from the Phantom Menace.
Yes, I totally
with the creepy crawly legs. I loved it. Love seeing that. We lost Gold Leader, the clone says. That's always nice to hear a Gold Leader. The I Have You Now from Anakin. Followed very quickly by Anakin doing a spinning trick.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't actually have him say spinning. That's a good trick. But they're already inviting you to think about Anakin's catalog of greatest hits. So I thought about the spinning line as he was spinning. Obi-Wan is a character who does say, I've got a bad feeling about this, a decent amount. And he says it here. There's a Wilhelm scream at one point, I believe, during the ground pounding. And then Padme also has I have a bad feeling about this. So those were just kind of the the standard things. And it's so powerful because you even see it in the beginning of the 3D Clone Wars of, for a long time, I've got a bad feeling about this in Wilhelm scream. Those were like the two little secret nods. And now they're so well known that they're being phased out of use. Right.
Yeah.
And when you hear them, it's just like, they're not a subtle little hint. Back in 2003, that would have been, a relative. I've got a bad feeling about this. Yeah, people knew that by then, but the Wilhelm scream, they still had some amount of subtlety. And if they popped up in a modern thing, they'd be like screaming,
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, the Wilhelm scream is always screaming. And the last thing for me was just, I think, again, thematically, kind of the horror that Dirge represents really reminded me of the Drengir, of that horror of something that can't be defeated in the way that you think. You can't just chop it apart with a lightsaber. And the kind of just technical problem that represents the Jedi, but more like how much that's going to force them to question, like, I go to hacking things apart with my lightsaber as the solution often, and I can't now.
Yep, I like that. Could Dirge just have larger legs? That's all I ask, man.
Yeah, I mean, he really should be able to, given what he can do with his torso, man. If he can bulk up there, give him some legs.
Apologize to all you Dirge fans. You hate me now, and I get it. I understand.
I'm sure we have at least one follower whose Twitter handle is like at Dirge's legs, and the legs of Dirge. That's it.
If we didn't, we will now.
So we are heading into our final question. But before we get there, Ken, is there any other sort of big picture thoughts that you have on this first volume? Because we'll be discussing that second volume next week.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get to volume 2 because that's some of the stuff that definitely stood out more in my mind over the years and gets referenced a lot. And we talked about some of the stuff in those second episodes. But it was great to go back. Again, we took to send some memories. We didn't use that nearly enough, but just I can remember my roommates and friends at the time, and we didn't all gather around to watch, but I remember the couch. I remember the job I was stuck in. I remember the clothes. I do remember this time. It was kind of like they just recently did the remastered version of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater version game, 1 and 2. And this is around the same era. And man, just a weird amount of specific feelings and emotions and days. Just I remember Tuesday afternoons wanting more out of my life, playing Tony Hawk and watching Clone Wars microseries stuff. So I love to go back, but also again, I'm being honest. I had to kind of check myself a little bit to be like, don't be some hoity-toity theme warrior. We get it, Ken. You study Star Wars and have fun. Just watch this and engage with what's there, engage with the time that it was presented. And then you got to the Ilum stuff, and I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that this is how I learned about Ilum. So there you go. Good lesson for me.
Yeah. I think similar journey for me, sense memory of being in that apartment in that specific little built-in nook dining table that I had turned into an office. All the time I spent there when, all my friends that I was doing comedy with, almost all of them were nerds, and we talked about Star Wars, but a lot of them were like prequels, and this was not high on their list. A couple of them checked it out and liked it, and were like, all right, less silly humor and more Jedi. Just they were all down for the Mace Windu punching the B2 battle droids.
Yeah,
that was a dream come true. But just remember being in that space, just delighted to see more of the galaxy far, far away, and to see it in this specific way. And I could almost taste the pepperoni tombstone frozen pizza I was no doubt eating while I was watching this 20 seconds at a time while it buffered.
buffered.
Yeah. And I think for me, from the modern perspective, I think what it's really making me appreciate is taking a big spoonful of our own medicine of Star Wars is many things. And I think a lot of different parts of Star Wars have all these ingredients, and you turn the dial up and down on the level of ingredients. And I feel like this series, for me, it turns the dial down on themes and ideas. They are there, but there's a real light touch. And what is turned up to 11 and possibly beyond is adventure serial, is, action, aesthetic, just visual poetry, just beautiful images that, maybe they're just a beautiful image for beautiful image's sake. Maybe they're a beautiful image that holds all of the idea, but it's really just taking the part of Star Wars that you and I talk about, that's it looks and sounds cool, and really celebrating that and turning the dial down a little bit. Like the themes and the ideas are there, but it is for me more about this just a delicious feast of visual excitement.
A great example with the dial. And valuable experience for me.
Yeah, me too. So I ended up really, really enjoying this, and I'm super excited to dig into Volume 2, as you're saying, because I think it's a little bit, it evolves a little bit. The episodes are longer, and it tells this very specific story with Anakin, with Grievous, and I'm really, really excited to dig in. But for now, here is my final question for us for this episode, Ken. If you could see a new 3 to 5 minute episode or a short arc of this version of Clone Wars, what character or kind of story would you want to see?
I went a lot of different directions, and I'm settling almost on the fly here with the Battle of Exegol. But there's a lot of characters, a lot of things that we have headcanon on, or references in the novel, or people even at Lucasfilm going, I don't know, maybe they're there. We haven't figured that out yet. So give me a little micro series of, Jarek Yeager and Kaz and Tordoza showing up the Battle of Exegol. Maybe we get the answer of 9 no. Maybe we get a little bit more of that stuff. Maybe we are on the Colossus. Just seeing it in this style, so that way you could focus on the heroic moments. Maybe a little more with Wedge, but we already know the overall picture. But let's focus in on the beats and characters of the folks that rose up to defend the galaxy.
Nice. I love it. I think that's a great pick. I stayed a little bit more in the Clone Wars era, and here's the thing that I want. I want one of my favorite Jedi, old Terra Sinube. I want the story to be that he was out on a walk away from the Jedi Temple during Order 66.
Yeah.
And it starts really peaceful and calm. He's just going for a walk with his cane, which is a lightsaber cane, and then a clone sees him. One of these, they've been affected now by Order 66, so they're really scary. And then you just get an explosive action scene of Terra Sinube using his lightsaber cane, and maybe even hitting him with his tail, grabbing him, just a huge like Mace Windu level, grabs the Clone Wars, the clone trooper with his tail around the neck and throws him way over into the distance over a building in Coruscant. And Terra Sinube escapes Order 66 in the style of Genndy Tartakovsky.
I love that. I could see that.
I'm going to be just sitting around this afternoon, Ken, drinking a White Claw and picturing Terra Sinube taking out clones.
Hey.
All right. Next week, like we said, we'll be talking Volume 2. Really, really happy that Disney has put these on Disney Plus so that we can all look at them. Some of us for the first time, some of us revisiting them, and really celebrate what is so awesome about the Clone Wars 2D vintage micro series. Ken, do you want to tell people where they can find us?
That's right. On Twitter, ForceCenter Pod is where you can find us. We're on Instagram, YouTube as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Podcast available on a lot of different spots, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music and Spotify. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. There, if you can get into our Discord where you can tell me to my face I'm wrong about Dirge, I'll accept it. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com. Also, follow us over at the Good People Association at the GPA.fun. You, sir.
Yeah, you can follow me Twitter and Instagram at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out my website for comedy albums, my other podcast, Obsessed, all sorts of different stuff. That website is josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Dirge's tiny legs, this has been Force Center.